Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg with Cloudcast Media, and we are absolutely thrilled to have in the studio with us today Brigadier General James A. Ryans II. He's the Commanding General of Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, in the Western recruiting region. How you doing, General?
I am doing great. I mean, it's a great weather out here today.
It really is very, very nice, and obviously we're certainly keeping an eye on what happened up in Los Angeles as well, and hopefully we're not going to be running into those things. Joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. Kristen is the Executive Director of San Diego Writers, Inc. How you doing, Kristen?
I'm doing well. It's been a minute, as the kids don't say.
My goodness.
Yeah.
This is the first time in a couple of months?
Couple months, right? Yeah.
Good to have you back in the studio.
Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I want to say, General, thank you so much for hosting myself and my colleague, Aaron Tanner, at a recent graduation in the Marine Corps. I got to tell you something. If you've not done this, you need to do it. Very, very special occasion, and thank you for treating us like royalty. I know you do this a lot, but the way you set everything up, and thank you to your Colonel Jim as well, and teeing up and your wonderful staff. You treat everybody like it's the most important day of their life, and it is. Talk about that graduation and how important that is.
Yeah, so the beauty of my job is seeing that graduation each and every week, and it's the product of a transformation that kind of starts initially with the family's involvement with supporting their loved ones' desire to support or serve their country. And they send them away to a place that they've heard about that seems like the scariest place they've ever going to go, to do challenges they don't understand. And at the end of it, when the family comes, they see their loved one in some way, shape, or form. Usually what I always tell people is that the heart and soul of what a service member is already established by the love and support that they've gotten from their family members, coaches, teachers. Anybody who's been special in their life has already instilled that. It takes us about 3 months to try to teach them they can do more than they thought they could do. And so usually what that results in is family members and loved ones coming back and seeing their new Marine stand a little bit taller, be a little bit leaner, be a little bit sharper, and a little bit more confident in who they are, prepared to go out and continue to serve their country in a new and exciting way.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, as you've said at that graduation, and very forthright on it, your job is to make Marines.
That's right.
And when they first step foot, and then 3 months later, and then even throughout their whole life in that process, when did you get interested in joining the military?
So for me, I was 17 years old, and I joined the Marine Corps in 1988. And I knew that I wasn't ready to go to college. That was my problem. So my problem was my mom was a college graduate. My sister was a college graduate. And they said, hey, you got to go to college. And I basically looked at my mom and said, if you would like to burn money, we could go into the backyard. We could make a fire, and then I wouldn't have to study. We could just burn it there, because there's no way that I'm going to be able to do it, because I just had never been focused on that in my life. I'd been working ever since I was 9 years old, taking newspapers, working at a grocery store, just working my whole life. And so because of that, I knew I needed to do something different. And so I have fun telling the story. I often tell the story to recruiters at recruiter school. I went into an armed forces recruiting station in Hampton, Virginia. And the way that they set up those recruiting stations is each service has like a little section of the armed forces recruiting station. They usually put the Marines in the back, just so y'all know. So I walked in the front door. I go to the second door. It's an Army recruiting door. I had called the guy. I talked to him on the phone. My impression, I don't want to throw him under the bus, was that I was supposed to be there that day. So I go to the door, I pull on the door's locked. I shake it a couple times. A loud, booming voice comes down the hallway saying, "Hey, you, what are you doing?" And then he just kind of waves me down. I walk in. There were 3 male sergeants, a female sergeant. They're all in their dress blue Delta uniform. And I was like, I'm in.
Mm.
And I signed up right then and there. I went home. I had to get my mom's signature. And I thought I was going to be in the Marine Corps for about 4 years and go to college via the GI Bill.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was going to be a stepping stone experience, which is what many young Americans feel. But once I got in, I realized that the character and nature of the organization kind of fit who I was as an individual. And then I found out I could become an officer. So I went through an officer program. I went to a school. I got an NROTC scholarship. And so then I graduated from Jacksonville University in Florida and was commissioned as an infantry officer in 1995.
So 37 years ago, if I do my math right, 1988.
That's good,
coming up
Drew.
on it. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, listen, I can add. It's stunning.
Makes one of us, though. Good for you, yeah.
It's stunning as it is.
You're sharp as you look.
Yes, right. Well, then obviously we're going to get some glasses for you, effective immediately. I think what's wonderful about that, and certainly the people you've touched, the families you've touched, the families you don't even know you've touched in that aspect is monstrous in that area. What has changed over those 37 years? That's probably a 16-hour discussion over here, but in general.
Yeah, I think the most succinct way that I would like to put it is that as I've grown up, I've learned to value the journey over the specific destination. So a lot of times what we may talk to ourselves about is, and we even talk to our kids about it, like, what do you want to be? Because for years and years, I came up kid of the 80s, it was about goal orientation. But what I think I've learned and what has changed and kept me in the Marine Corps is a handful of things that are connected to this concept of the journey.
Right.
And that is that I've been in the Marine Corps for over 30 plus years. I've been to combat more than most. If you add up the 6 combat tours that I've done, they add up to about 3.5 years of time. So about 10% of my time has been doing what we think we're going to do. And 90% of my time has been a sharp focus on creating an environment in which those that I lead or have been given the honor to serve are made better in preparation for doing something. And then what I mean about the journey, then what you start to learn is that it's just as much about this process of self-improvement and improving others with the intent that something could occur has become what has given me value in doing this on a regular basis, as opposed to the idea of actually, I'm just here to fight. That's the truth. There's some truth in that, but you spend most of your time preparing for it.
Right.
And you're still going to be better for it. And hopefully the individuals that you've been able to impact when given the opportunity have now become better for it. So I think ultimately what I'd get across to your listeners is that when it comes to what we're doing in the military, when we're doing it right, is that we're in the same business that the teachers in the community are into. We're in the same business that the coaches in the community are into. We're in the same business that the pastoral staffs at your religious institutions are into. We're in the business of making people better to be able to handle the stress and trials that may come before them. And in my job, we're planning to be the ones that are able to do it under the most duress. But the idea is that we're making people better.
Oh, that's great. We're chatting with Brigadier General James A. Ryans. He is the Commanding General of the Marine Corps at Recruit Depot, San Diego, in the Western Recruiting Region. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. We are now in our 19th year. Hard to believe. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union for many, many years. 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County, from financial literacy to food insecurity to everything in between. Mission Fed has been spectacular, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel. She's the executive director of San Diego Writers. Before I turn it over to Kristen, I know she has a bunch of questions for you, General. Certainly, besides making Marines, it's also recruiting Marines,
yes,
and so forth. How is that coming? Compared to the other branches, Navy and Army and so forth, and Air Force, and if you can even fathom talking about the Air Force on this podcast, that's okay. We have some Air Force friends.
Whoa. My family's all Air Force. You calm down over there.
Joseph Craver is probably smiling when I say this. Longtime community leader, and Jim knows who Joe is, an Air Force guy. He'd always tease himself about it. How is recruiting going?
So it is definitely a challenge to recruit now. And the primary reason, though, a lot of people look at it as a propensity problem. And what I would say is that this idea of service has taken a little bit of hit as it relates to the government, but not in the way that I think people are interpreting it. In other words, trust is still up. It's just not in the traditional institutions that they were in before. So you might have some people who are wondering whether or not they're going to join the military, or may think, hey, I don't know if I want to do that because of all the things I just talked about. Hey, I think I'm going to war. I don't know if I want to do that, or what are we going to do? So we do have a little bit of those challenges. But for the Marine Corps, and I would actually make the argument for the Air Force as well, is that we have not had the same level of challenges as the other services, because in an environment of a lot of turmoil and change, we have remained consistent in our standards and message. And so who we are is known by the American people. And it's one of those things. If you're going to be a Marine, you kind of can't choose any of the other services. We're just different.
Right.
So most of the people who want to be Marines are still going to want to be Marines. So what we've seen is that the challenge that our recruiters face is not convincing people to be Marines, because that same percentage is probably out there. It's finding the percentage of people who are academically qualified, or I should say intellectually qualified, through the ASVAB test, the Armed Forces Vocational Aptitude Battery, or whether or not we find people who are medically qualified, because we've gone through a more intense medical screening process that makes it longer and harder to get them to be able to sign a contract based on that. And those are the biggest challenges. And if you look at a big funnel across the United States of America, if you look at age group that we're looking at, it narrows down to about 80,000 people a year who are, no kidding, the right age, the right qualification, or they have everything ready to go.
Yeah, that's great. Kristen, what questions do you have for the General?
Lots, but I just wanted to comment. I love some of your thoughts about, Drew and I talk about all the time, there's not just one pathway, like with college and things like that.
Right.
The world is very different now, and there are lots of different pathways. So what are some of those opportunities, I guess, for those of us that maybe, don't know as much? What are some kind of career opportunities within the Marines that a young person could say, oh, that appeals to me, or I see myself in that?
No, that's a great question, because in many ways, when you think about the organization, you might think totally about just what you see in the movies.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is, we have administrators, we have dispersing Marines who are in charge of pay, we have supply Marines who are in charge of inventories, we have mechanics, we've got engineers who build things and blow things up, which may be fun to some people.
For sure.
And we have military policemen. We have a vast number of jobs that you may qualify for. And even as you make that step into it, we've got tuition assistance. So I sat down with a young corporal today. And so for your listeners, that is an E4. So that means when you first come in, you're an E1. He's gone from E1 to E2 to E3 to E4. And he told me that his New Year's resolution was he just enrolled himself in classes, 2 of them. And so they're getting tuition assistance, which is paying for them to go through online courses. So while they're on active duty, they're still getting their degree and broadening their opportunities, whether or not they intend to pursue a continued career like I did, or whether they launch to get out.
When we come back from break, General, want to continue that conversation, but talk about something that's near and dear to your heart and your team's heart. And you guys are laser beamed on connecting with the community, whether it's teachers you mentioned before or it's community groups as well. Talk about how you do that. We always save some time at the second half of the interview on what our listeners can do to support your efforts and the Marines that work for you and so forth, and in any other way that is. And don't be bashful. I know you're not. And then I'm going to share some of my personal experiences. Chatting with you at that wonderful breakfast. We got to mention.
Okay.
We got to mention George.
Okay,
we have to mention George, your dog. Okay, that is a first. Because your dog, George, and my dog, Jackson, will have a play date one of these days, okay? Your bride will kick you out of the house, for a good month at least, okay, when those two dogs take care of the house. I'm going to tell you that right now when we return with Brigadier General James Ryan's Commanding General of the Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, and Western Recruiting Region. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Again, we are the longest-running community podcast in the nation, now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. So honored to have in the studio with us today Brigadier General James Ryan's Commanding General of Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego, and Western Recruiting Region, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel, the Executive Director of San Diego Riders Inc. Kristen.
Yeah. So Drew had mentioned, right before break that you all are very big in the community. So can you speak to a little bit of your community engagement?
Yeah, so at my level, I try to engage with as many institutions that are willing or where it would be effective for me to engage. But we also have our Single Marine program on the base that actually does outreach locally. They've done everything from partner with the Rotary to do bike assembly. They've gone to the Humane Society and supported the Humane Society. So I see that as a twofold. One, that's an opportunity for young Marines to actually serve their community in a way that they can see the effects of service, which I think probably enriches the spirit as well as the mind on what true service is when you can actually see the impact of your efforts into something, a living thing, a living being, a human, somebody you can say, hey, I helped somebody today, and it empowers them to continue to instill those values in themselves that will pull them through the tough times associated with combat service and what we want to do. The other way where by nature we interact with the community is by opening up the base whenever we can. via the boot camp challenge locally.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I was like, what's that all about?
So the boot camp challenge is nothing that I've made. It's been something that we've been doing historically in the community.
You can take credit. No one will. I mean, you can take credit here. We're in a safe space.
I think I cannot, and be honest.
If you will, that's fine. That's fine too.
But what it is that for years, what the depot has done is we've created an opportunity to do basically a 5K run where drill instructors will give you a taste of boot camp.
Drew said he'd like to do that. He told me that he really wanted to do that.
Through some very affectionate communication that sounds very forceful at times while you run across obstacles.
Okay.
We also expose people to different aspects of things on the base. Like this past one, we had our military working dogs do a demonstration. Because that's another cool job that I didn't even mention. Because I could, like you said, I could talk for hours about the jobs in the Marine Corps. I could have talked about cyber jobs that we have now, where now we're actually recruiting Marines to participate in cyber operations and computer networks and cybersecurity. Because this idea of what we instill in our Marines, the aggressive approach to how we do things, is very effective in that environment as well. And it's starting to be recognized not only in the Marine Corps, but across the Department of Defense.
Again, what I'm excited about here, now I'm putting words into your mouth, and we talked about this earlier, is definitely the more I hear you chat, and we'll work with Jim on this if it's okay with you. I'd love to do a remote from where you are. There are so many topics we can talk about.
Tons.
And, so we'll make that happen. I can just tell you right now, there's going to be so many people we can highlight and all the stuff you're chatting about on this. One of the things, if anyone has met this wonderful general, he is so personable. He is so approachable. He's very fun, very funny. But when I was honored to have some breakfast with him and some of the cool folks before the graduation, and his wonderful bride was there. And, we talked about his beloved dog, George. Now, his dog, George, is very much like my 80-pound, 20-month-old Golden. If you let them run around, there will not be a house standing in all this business. How's George doing, by the way?
So George is doing great. And as much as George is our dog, that is the first dog in our home in near 30 years of marriage where I can say that dog is my wife, Krista's dog. And that's because on our, actually we're coming up on 29 years, but on our 28th wedding anniversary, we go out to eat dinner. I'm thinking, hey, it's great. We come back in. It's Saturday morning. My wife goes, are you driving me to go look at these dogs? I'm like, what dogs? And she's like, well, I want to look at these Aussie doodles and I want to look at this golden doodle.
Okay.
And I'm like, well, I was like, I guess I am.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I drove her, and George, our golden doodle, was a little pup, jumped up in her lap, started licking her face, and I was like,
they're the cutest thing you've ever seen. Like, you don't have a choice.
No choice.
Yeah, no.
And so we got him, and then I looked at his head and his paws, and I was like, we are in for it. So easily in 6 months, 50 pounds.
Oh my God.
He's ready to go.
Yeah.
And he has no idea that he is actually a big dog. So he runs at you at full speed, lands in your lap. And we started talking. And once we started talking, Drew was like, all right, yeah, guaranteed. We got to get our dogs together because they have no idea. They will run. They will play. He wants to play
100%
all the time.
100%. See, my dog, like yours, is full of muscle, 80 pounds, thinks I'm the couch because I'm on the couch. And all of a sudden, so now I'm the couch. And I go, and of course, they always step in spots that are uncomfortable, as you well know.
Yeah.
Yes.
In this aspect of it. And does a full sprint and stands up pretty tall. So I'm looking forward to the day and hopefully you won't put me in the brig when Jackson does something and they just play incessantly and just ignore the heck out of us. But we will have a Jackson George play date. We'll make that happen.
I think we have to do it. Yeah. And I think it's to both of our benefit, right? So if you're
100%.
if he's like George will go 100 miles an hour when they're together.
Yes.
And then that'll get it out of his system at least for a little bit. So that might give us both peace that night for a little bit. I mean, that's,
For a little bit. I got to tell you, he has a friend, Jackson, called Bogey. That's a 1 year older than Jackson. And they have play dates. We have a play date with Bogey today.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, they're cute.
And they do mixed martial arts wrestling for literally for an hour.
Yes.
They're pinning each other. They're doing all these things. They're doing some special Marine stuff, I'm sure.
Yes.
And that's what we'll do. You and I will sit there and watch, maybe with a beer in our hand, if we can do that or whatever. A non-beer is fine too. And watch them go at it. And so I'm looking forward to that. Since it's on the podcast, it is recorded. Jim, you and I will work offline on that aspect of it. We're chatting with Brigadier General James A. Ryans. He's the commanding general of Marine Corps Recruit Depot San Diego in the Western Recruiting Region. I'm Drew Schlosberg. As you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight in the Community Show, we are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed for 6 decades, just doing great work in San Diego County, joined by my co-host, Kristen Fogel, Executive Director of San Diego Writers, Inc. General, what can our listeners do to support the amazing work that you and your team is doing?
Well, I feel almost unable to come up with something specific because this community is different than any other community in which I've ever been stationed in my military career. And what I mean by that is that I've spent the majority of my Marine Corps career on the East Coast at a base where we have great relationships with the community because they are us. It's incestuous, right?
Right.
Everybody in the community was either a Marine, has a kid who's a Marine, is married to a Marine, was married to a Marine. And so it's kind of we're just in a big base. You just leave the base to go to the other base, which is a bunch of people who are just like you. But this place is different. There are individuals here in this community who don't have military experience, who are not really connected to the Marine Corps, but do a great job of honoring our service members and participating and supporting them in the community. So what I would say is that if you are in the community, you interact with any of our service members, is that you just embrace them for what they are. They are a very special, select group of unique members of our society who in some way, shape, or form, for whatever personal reason they have decided to get beyond all of the petty stuff that we talk about on a regular basis and to commit themselves to the service of their country. That's what they are. They're still young, most of them. They're still growing up. They're still trying to figure out what's going on. But for whatever reason, they've decided to believe that it is a worthy thing to serve the other members of their country, even as they're trying to figure out what that service means and what it looks like. So continue to grant them as much grace as you possibly can. And when you see fit to participate in some of the wonderful organizations in this community that provide support to them, please participate. Examples. One of the tough things about being a service member in San Diego County is financial. And that is because the financial requirements that are set within our, the financial burden that might be geographically heavy is independent of the fact that the United States government has set the pay and benefits for the individuals who are serving across the nation. And so what you find is that in some ways you have very young service members on active duty in all services. I know I'm a Marine, but I want to speak on behalf of all my brothers and sisters in the services who are young, who get stationed in San Diego County, and they're like, wow, this is awesome, until they purchase gas or, want to get something to eat or what have you. Now, I'm a general in the Marine Corps. I'm okay. But we do have young enlisted service members who you can Google if you want how much they get paid. You just go into Google and look at what that looks like, and you'll find out they're paying benefits because we're government employees, so you can figure out what we make. And then imagine what that's like in San Diego County. And when we're in an environment now where there are a lot of young people who get married a little early or do things a little bit out of order maybe, and when they do, they have different financial requirements. I think that's the biggest way where there are members in San Diego County that can help them out, as well as in our community in transitioning Marines from active duty, as well as all service members from active duty into positions within the community.
I think that's great. Is there something on the website where they can, help out in that area? Is there, there's a lot of organizations that certainly we like working with, the Armed Services YMCA and so forth. Is there a certain place they can go and support in that manner?
I wish there were, but there's not.
Gotcha.
It would be kind of frowned upon for the United States military to post a donation website.
Right, but
so that's not what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But we do partner, like you said, with all these other communities out there. Like STEP is a great program out there.
Yeah. Tom does a great job.
Yeah, and that's an example. So support to enlisted personnel, that's an example of a local community that we, by law, cannot necessarily endorse and say, now they are now part of the Department of Defense. We are limited in our non-federal entities that we can endorse, so we can't place those type of endorsements. But I'm doing this from a personal position, not necessarily as, although, you could say it's hard to separate that. That's an example of an organization that personally I've seen that is taking the time to create an avenue through which the community people can participate and help service personnel.
No, I think that's great. One last point. For one of our listeners that says, I want to go to one of these graduations and support the Marines who have gone through their 3 months of boot camp and learning and all that, who do they contact? Do they just go to the website, just contact Colonel Gruny and all that, or they just send up by carrier pigeon? They can probably go on the website and sign up.
I think they can go to the website.
Yeah.
And who you're talking about, Jim Gruny, he's a big time guy around here.
He's a BTO. He's a
big time operator.
Absolutely.
Right? So in his position on our depot on the base is to interact with the community, and he would help us facilitate the ability for people to come in.
That's great.
On average, it's about a ratio of about 4-to-1 on what we call Family Day, which happens on Thursdays, and about 5-to-1 on Graduation Day, between the amount of Marines who are graduating and how many people are actually in the stands.
Right.
So what that means is on a day where we can graduate up to 550 people, we may have about 2,500 people come through the gate that morning and are in position to view that graduation. So we have the capacity, we can get them through. That's another way of our interaction with the community is that through our cycle of about 17,000 Marines being created each year, that is a group of people that are exposed to San Diego yearly. Just do that multiplication of the number of anywhere probably to 90,000 people who have made the trip to San Diego each year to see their Marine graduate. Well, they stay in the San Diego community. They stay at the hotels. They visit the museums. They go to the restaurants, and they go, "Wow, San Diego's pretty nice."
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're going to have Colonel Gruny on next month, chatting with his friends at the San Diego Rotary Club 33. So we'll probably pin Jim down on that one as well.
Pin him down.
That's right, exactly. As I've added another moniker to his title, besides Colonel BTO. I'll pay for this. I will tell you right now. I know that. So Jim's smiling right now on the other side of that. General, I cannot tell you how much we appreciate you coming in. It's about the third or fourth time I got to spend time with you, and it gets better every single time. The Jackson George get-together will be
we got to make that happen.
We're going to make that happen. Wishing you, a wonderful bride of yours, and the team you work with, nothing but continued great success. I'm going to look forward to following up with Jim on maybe doing a remote from your area and getting some of the other talented folks to talk about the many different things that you had brought up, the cyber or the dog training and all that business, if that works for you.
It would work great, and I appreciate it, and I'll relay this to Krista. It'll make her day to have George have somebody to play with, and she is definitely the better half of
you guys are a great duo. We just can't thank you enough. That was Brigadier General James A. Ryans, Commanding General of Marine Corps Recruit Depot, San Diego and Western Recruiting Region. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlossberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 19th year, brought to you by the amazing folks of Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County. As always, Kristen Fogel, so glad to have you back after
So glad to be here. Thanks, Drew.
hiatus, and we hope our audience enjoyed the interview. Thank you.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlossberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.